Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kara here with another Guardian Tales video, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down the best rare heroes here in Guardian Tales. Let's talk about these guys because I think rare heroes are getting into a better spot. They're not ideal, but they're still not nearly as good as unique heroes, but there is some good ones out here that I think are worth highlighting. Hopefully put you on the right direction, because I think the big question people have about rare heroes is, are they worth investing into? And these ones are definitely going to be worth your resources going forward. And I'm going to try to give you some context and also give you guys where these rare heroes are used, because not many rare heroes are used in the obvious examples of Arena and Coliseum, but it doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that they're really good in other areas and they fill a lot of spots, and there's a lot of benefits to having rare heroes in your roster actually leveled up and actually putting resources into them. So with all that being said, let's get into the video here with the first one, Akiyuki. Akiyuki is an absolutely incredible character. First thing that really stands out to you when you're looking at this character is her base stats are very in line with other unique heroes. So that's going to put her in a very good position going forward. And then another thing that I think is very unique to her is look at her base critical hit chance. No other hero is even close to that. So not only does she have the party buff of 34%, but then she has her own base of 16%, which is insane. And then you add her weapon on there. She has so much crit in her kit that she does a ton of damage. Then she has a couple other things going for her too. So attack increases by 25% when attacking boss monsters. She is a character that you're going to be using a lot in raiding. That's where she's mainly using the fire team. She does have success in Arena, especially with the buffs to Vishuvac. Her buffs have made Akiyuki even viable in Arena. I would say she's probably the only truly viable unit in Arena. Not too good in Coliseum, not too good in Camazon or Orbalift, but you could kind of get by in those ones because a lot of times the difficulty is finding the right style of damage, and she's going to be a hard-hitting melee character that where if survivability is not an issue, damage is an issue, but not only the damage, but the type of damage you're doing, she could be useful in those game modes. Rare character, still a lot of resources you got to invest in her. Also, you got to get lucky to get her exclusive weapon, but her exclusive weapon is totally good. It's very worth it if you can get it. There's really no way to target it. It's just going to all be RNG from the mileage shop. That's going to apply to essentially all of these rare heroes, and that's just an unfortunate side effect of having one of these, but if you can get it, fantastic. And final slash of the swordsmanship inflicts 50% more damage and becomes an area attack. That's definitely a very good passive associated with this. On single, like one-handed swords, the stats don't blow you away, but 15% more crit right there. So you got 15 plus her base 16 and 34%. You're getting an insane amount of critical hit chance with this character, especially if you get her exclusive weapon. So very good there. Just a hard-hitting character. She has a very unique attack animation where she dashes and slides through. You can use that to your benefit. She's actually very useful and one of the only characters that can go through certain matches in the tower, and also in a lot of, not a lot, but in a few Tower of Horizon stages, where if you just see these two things that you can get by, it's because you need to have her specific attack animation, which I think is terrible game design, but that's a whole nother point. But she's the character that needs to do it. So, you know, that means she's better because she's one of the few characters that can do it. I believe her, Rachel can, and a couple others, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. She's number one, especially now with more fire characters and Centillia and stuff like that. She's definitely moving up in viability, even though she was probably the best rare hero ever since the game came out. She's just getting even better. Then next on the list is going to be Coco. First of all, to give you guys an idea where she's at, she's on one of the hardest hitting teams in the entire game, in the water team. She's a member of that team. So to give you an idea, raiding is a very late game focus part of the game. She's right in there with the best of them. So she has actual in-game viability, which I think is awesome for a rare hero, just like Akiyuki. Akiyuki is in the best fire team as well. So both of those characters really killing it in the in-game there. Then she gives the skill. Well, let's look at her base stats. One thing that is disappointing about her is her base stats, with only, as a damage dealer, 763 base attack, 30k HP, which is not great, but it's not terrible. It's still bottom of the line there. But even bottom base HP usually is pretty close to someone that has average to good base HP, unless you're talking like Marina or something like that, which is just a massive statistical outlier. And then her base defense is very low. So this is one of those characters that has true rare stats, like rare level stats, but is still a great character for other reasons. First of all, she's doing the skill damage buff, which is solid, especially if you're looking for a damage dealing character. Ideally, you would only have one character on the team with this buff. Usually, I don't like to stack this buff. I'll only want to have one to have it. Then normal attack is fantastic, which is fires red ice shards that damage enemies and reduces enemies defense by 20% for 5 seconds. If you've been following this channel for a bit, you'll notice every single time a character can do this, that means they're good. This is a fantastic ability to have, and she has it on a rare character, and it's not tied to her EX weapon. Amazing ability, means you could splash her in on different elemental teams and it's still going to do the thing. Her party skill and her normal attack do not have a element specific benefit, which is nice, even though for the most part she's only going to be a water character or in water teams. And then chain skill goes injured to airborne, and then summons a red ice storm that inflicts 225% of DPS damage and reduces enemies attack by 30%, which is nice, but not necessarily game changing. It's just kind of cool that she has a little built-in effect there. And then lastly, ice shooter's damage increases by 25% of skill damage. So for her to be able to boost so much skill damage, she's getting extra damage here, even though you look at her DPS, because of her base stats, it's very low, but she's boosting up 25% of her damage base of her skill damage. So increases by 25% of skill damage. That's an amazing ability. It's going to give her a ton of extra damage, and it's going to be deceptive. You can look at her DPS stat and it's going to look really low relative to other characters, but then this passive here is going to make a big boost. Then her exclusive weapon here is automatically fires magic bullets that inflict 30% DPS every second. So it's going to increase her DPS there. So a very good exclusive weapon as well. So easily makes this list as one of the best rare heroes in Guardian Tales. Then another one is Elvira. So Elvira has a very unique exclusive weapon and attack animation where she has these bouncing bombs. So instead of throwing 2 apple bombs at the end, she throws a single special bomb that is twice as powerful as the normal bomb. Upon an explosion, the special bomb leaves fire on the ground, inflicting 125% DPS damage for 3 seconds. So that's one of the main reasons why people take her, because of this weapon skill that's so unique. Oh, I should say that's her normal attack, but her weapon skill is what makes her unique, where it's those 3 bouncing grenades, puts enemies in airborne state. It's this massive weapon skill that takes up a big portion of the screen, and each bounce is another trigger of ailment. So it's a really good thing to take into rating. She's a very good character, especially for a rare in that game mode. And other parts of her kit that are awesome are she has the range damage buff, a great buff for especially if you're looking to do damage. Range characters are usually going to be the way to do that. She has good base stats, not great but good. 921 attack is for a damage dealer is on the low end, but still not Coco level bad. And then her base defense is a little better, even though it's still kind of negligible. And then lastly, her special ability, this is what makes her very unique, as well as her attack animation, is this part here, where it's Mischievous Prank inflicts extra 10% damage to enemies with the same level as her, and then to enemies with lower level inflicts an extra 10% damage per level up to 100%. So this is something that in the beginning of raiding, when they're not on your level yet, you do a ton of extra damage, and it helps you progress through those stages faster than you normally would. For a while there, the bosses didn't actually scale to your level, so this was something where a few raids there, she really scaled up in viability, because she kept, even at the highest level of rating, she was able to keep this extra damage buff going, which was at the time unprecedented. It was the first time that's ever happened. Then they fixed that in a few more raid cycles, so it's not necessarily something that's always going to happen, but is definitely for a bit there was good. And then especially in the beginning of all raid environments, you always get that. Then also too, just in general, Conquest has a lot of underleveled characters relative to you, so I think she's going to get a ton of use in Conquest as a damage dealing character because of that. And you actively lower their level through progressing through, so I think she's going to be a pretty big addition in Conquest, which is all late game content. So these rare heroes are still very good in late game content, at least these ones specifically. Not all of them are going to be viable late, but at least these ones are. Elvira, Coco, Akiyuki, all great characters late game. Whereas now the next characters in viability are probably going to be mid to like probably definitely early, mid game as well, and then maybe verging into late game territory. And it's going to be healers just in general. And I think healers as a rare character are fantastic, because how you normally use rare characters is you pick a unique hero, and then based on that element, you're going to fill it in with other rare heroes as you progress, because you can't level up other unique heroes. You're going to be focusing on one. They're going to be your main person. They're the one you're going to be leveling in the evolution dungeon. And then in the meanwhile, you're going to be getting these rare heroes tagging along that are going to get evolution stones at a way faster pace. So that's why mono teams exist, and that's why rares are usually always in those mono teams. I think the best versions of those rare heroes in those teams are the healers, because they're very useful, especially with what you're trying to do in progression. You need a healer. So it's a really good combo there, and you can still prioritize all of your resources on your main person, but then you put the side amount of resources on the healer. So it works out beautifully for that, and that's why I like it when rares are healers for a particular element. That's why I like, for example, in the basic team, Lorraine is the healer. She's a rare character. You get her. I believe she's like the second character you're guaranteed to get. But she is one that needs her exclusive weapon, in my opinion, to really be viable as a healer, because this exclusive weapon is fantastic. So if you happen to randomly use it, you're using one of the basic heroes as your main character. She's going to be a great option for you. Because of Emma here, where it increases the range of AoE heal by 50% and is cast around the party member of lowest HP. So it actually targets it. It has smart casting there and inflicts 200% of DPS damage to the enemies in the AoE, and provides allies a shield of 100% of heal. So even if you take a little bit of damage, she heals, she'll just overheal you with a shield, which is awesome. And the AoE is actually massive. 50% extra on that AoE is a big heal. So I really like her. I use her in harder versions of the basic tower. Amazing hero. Base stat wise, it has a lot to be desired because of her low attack, but healers don't do that much attack, in my opinion. That's not why I bring them. Healers, you're just trying to keep everyone up, and she does a good job of that, especially with her exclusive weapon. Then she has a bizarre but kind of cool party buff where it's 20% shield increase on battle start. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of that, but I'm not hating on it either. It's okay. And then special ability, she can use AoE heal 2 more times. It's nothing crazy, but you know, it definitely makes a big difference in the healing there. The rest of her kit's just pretty standard. So restores HP of allies around her and removes negative effects. So that's another benefit of her heal, is it's removing negative effects on that, and it's targeting the character that's lowest. So a very good character, especially once you get that exclusive weapon. It really takes her to another level. So that's going to be the first healer on the list. Next one, light heroes. They don't really have a healer in this version of it. All their healing is built into their unique heroes. So unfortunately, that's not the case. And then most of these rare heroes, in like Aisha's good, I would say. So he's okay, but none of these characters really get that much use. The light team is just amazing. These 4 heroes on the light team synergize so well together, but for the most part, the rare heroes kind of get left behind, except her. I think she's a good hero. Definitely worth discussing as a good hero, but we're going to be talking about healers for now. Then Dark Karina. I use Karina a ton. My original character that I used to progress through the story was Arabelle. Karina was really clutch in keeping everyone up. She heals actually a little bit differently because she heals off damage, so she doesn't have a heal stat. She doesn't benefit from that. I would say her exclusive weapon is decently important because it gives her extra damage because of the giant fire bat, inflicts 100% extra damage and penetrates enemies, so you're going to be damaging more people, which means more healing for everyone. The more damage she does, the more healing you get, so that's really important. She has kind of a nice special ability here because the AI is dumb, so giving them as many second chances as possible is fantastic. Here in Immortality, when HP hits 0, recovers 40% HP instantly at 60-second cooldown time. So you could even wait for it if you're in hard content and you know they're going to die, but you need her for the next stage. You just wait. And then inflicts 300% DPS damage and restores allies HP. Great chain skill. Like that a lot. Don't know specifically how much it's restoring, but probably based on the amount of damage you do. But yeah, very good healer, especially if you have a dark team. Her base stats, she doesn't do much damage because of her, you know, she has a decent base attack, but nothing crazy. And then she's doing the 40% dark attack, which is awesome. I really like that in a healer, especially one that's damage based. And then let's go back here. So Fire doesn't have a good one when it comes to this, but Maya is the best healer in the game, but unfortunately doesn't have a good healer for a rare hero. Earth has the best, in my opinion, in Aoba. This character, especially in the beginning of the game, didn't have her exclusive weapon, and she was by far one of the most used healers, if not the best healer in the game, until Maya came out. And then her exclusive weapon came out, and she's still good, but she's not, you know, on the level of Maya. Even though Maya came out, was better than her, then she got her exclusive weapon. Maya's still better, but still a great healer. Synergizes well with the Earth team. The Earth team has a ton of good unique heroes. All these heroes, I would say, even Craig or Aleph, I always call him Craig, but even Aleph, you could probably base your team around in the beginning of the game and still have a lot of success. And you are guaranteed to get Aoba eventually in the story, so that's awesome. She works without her exclusive weapon. She's a good healer, good raw damage healer. So and boosts the Earth faction's attack up, just kind of like Karina. So a great rare hero, exactly the kind of rare hero I'm looking for is something like this in a healer. This is what I'm looking for. This is going to be on my free to play. I have Camille, I have Aoba, pulled them both. So these are going to be like the main duo I use for a lot of content. And then they also have a couple other good heroes here in Hecate. Craig is a great tank in the beginning. So a lot of good stuff here in the Earth faction, but specifically the healer, fantastic in Aoba. And then water heroes, this one I don't have too much experience with, especially since he just came out with the exclusive weapon. I haven't done much testing, but summons a frost fairy that follows Favi. It only emerges during battle and attacks enemies or uses the healing ray. So I would have to test the healing viability of this character, but was a character I remember in the beginning of the game when people were using a lot of 2-star heroes, or natural 2-star heroes, even in Coliseum and stuff. He was used a decent amount, especially if you had a water team, if you had Marina, if you had Garum. Potentially you would see Favi's out there, and I think he's a solid healer. He has a unique party skill where it attacks party attack heal plus 240% for injured chain skill. So very, very unique. So you're going to go all to injured, restores all as HP by 30% of heal, and removes negative effects, but then it gets boosted by this heal plus 240%. So it's a very big heal there, but it's weirdly worded. And he's one of the only people that has this party buff, but very, very niche, very unique party skill plus chain skill combination, but still kind of cool. And then a special ability here, when spell shot hits allies, they recover their HP by 3% of heal. And spell shot is just his, or spell bullet, when spell shots hit allies, so he gets to shoot out his spell bullets and then gets to heal people by 3% of heal, which is 3%, not 3% of their HP or anything like that, but 3% of the heal. So it's a very small heal, but it happens a ton. So that's how he's able to actually keep people up though. And then he has another ability here, which another ability launches a healing laser that restores allies HP and removes negative effects. So another character that has both abilities there and is also removing negative effects, which is a great thing to have on a healer. So, okay, now we talked about the healers here. We talked about the absolute top tier rares. We talked about the best healers you can synergize in the early and mid game. The second best style of rare hero I would invest in is a tank version. And these ones kind of the same concepts as a healer, but you do need to invest in them a little bit more for them to actually benefit you if it's hard content where you need the tank. But at least the party skill is going to boost up your survivability on your main hero. And the best versions of these in the game, I think, are solid tank here in your starting character, gonna be used in Rift events. Nothing too crazy. Does have the basic attack boost, which I do like. So if you do have a couple good basic heroes, now Kana's out, Arcana, you got Seaside Sohi, Arena, Future Knight. There's Nari. You know, like all these characters. Like basic has a lot of good heroes you could base your team around, and female/male knight would be a great person to pair with as a tank character. Also going to be boosting damage, but most tank characters, that's the exception, and that's a character that's using a shield, is relatively tanky, but that's going to be an exception of a character that you're going to be taking for that role. Most of them are going to be characters that are boosting defense or boosting HP, and they're just straight up there to tank as much damage as possible. And Rampang is a pretty solid one, in my opinion, where it has this special ability here where when HP is lower than 50%, damage is taken reduced by 30%. So surprisingly tanky, has a good taunt, and puts people into airborne. So if you have other ranged heroes, you'll be able to go injured to airborne, which is great. So you can get that 50% extra damage. And then the exclusive weapon for each enemy hit triggers an explosion that inflicts additional 30% DPS with 30% chance. So I think this exclusive weapon, not necessarily that great in my opinion. It does have a decent weapon skill for her if you're going to take her as a main character, but no one does that. That's really not an ideal thing to do. So okay character for a tank. This is definitely the definition of like a rare character that you're going to phase out of eventually, but still a good character. Then another tank hero, let's just keep going down the list. Light heroes. Aisha is going to be a great one here. I use her a decent amount even still. One of the best ways to, I believe she could do decent damage on the training dummy because of how much crit, you just got to get lucky with crits. So let's check her exclusive weapon here. So when she lands a critical hit, all allies critical hit chance increases by 2 times for 3 seconds, 8-second cooldown time. So a very interesting effect here. And then if you max limit break it, one of the few weapons in the game where when you max limit break it, you get extra critical hit chance instead of attack. So kind of cool weapon there. And then her base stats, like look at her attack though. It's absolutely horrible. one of the lowest attacks in the entire game. She has decent base defense because she is a shield user, so nothing too terrible there. But it's still lower. It's definitely on the rare side of that, whereas you would expect like in the 200 range for a shield user as a unique hero. But then she has a couple of cool abilities here, which is Royal Art of Defense, creates a 10% shield on battle start. When hit by enemies, creates 10% shield with 10% chance. Nothing too crazy there. Her chain skill is great, whereas her charismatic leadership increases all allies attack by 50%. Amazing. And then morale boosting increases nearby allies attack by 30% for 5 seconds. So I need to check that cooldown time. I don't think it's crazy long, but at the same time, a 5-second boost for 30% attack is great. I think that's a really good ability. It has the HP increase on party skill, or as her party buff. So a great character as like an off tank, someone that, especially if you have a light character you're gonna be basing your team around, you totally throw her in and get some extra survivability and also extra attack and crit and all that stuff, especially if you get lucky with her exclusive weapon. So then next we got dark characters. Tank wise, Yuze's okay. Nothing too crazy here. I used her as a tank in the beginning, but ideally you would just have Agma, but she's not terrible. And then I think potentially a sleeper would be Shapira, but we don't have an exclusive weapon for her yet. So her potential is undecided. She has decent base stats. She's a solid warrior style character. She has the melee party buff increase. So definitely be on the lookout for her exclusive weapon. I think she has potential to being a pretty decent rare hero, but she's not there yet. She's okay at this point. She's been used in raiding dark teams back in the day, but it's been a long time since that's ever been an option, especially with like Lilith coming out and just better heroes in general coming out. So and fire hero wise, I'm actually a pretty big fan of Lavi as a tank. I maxed mine out instead of, I didn't max limit break him, but I definitely leveled him up ever since the exclusive weapon came out, and I think he's actually pretty good. He has, his abilities are on the last hit of Soma fighting skills hit, triggers a larger explosion with 50% chance, and inflicts twice as much damage. So who cares about that? He's a tank character. He's not going to do that much damage anyway. And then when using Tizia, inflict 100% of DPS damage to enemies. So I like it when the taunt actually does damage. That's a nice addition there. Like for example, Marina and stuff, their exclusive weapons allow their taunt to actually do damage. His special ability, when hit by enemies, 50% damage is reduced with 30% chance. So he has a pretty, RNG is involved in it, but he could be reducing a ton of damage if he keeps winning that coin flip. And then he puts people in airborne, which is great, especially in those auto-controlled areas. I always like to see the ability to put someone in airborne to get that extra 50% damage. And then he taunts people intensively. I believe that means it's a pretty long range, but I'm not sure what that means specifically. I've tried testing it a little bit. I tried testing it against Sohee and seeing if Seaside Sohee would still get taunted by him if she's going for a ranged unit, but it did not work. So she just ignores all taunts regardless, even if they're taunted intensively with that. But I was hoping there'd be some kind of thing there, but that was not the case, unfortunately. Still a good character, surprisingly tanky, especially with the exclusive weapon on him. Then we got Earthwise. Craig is like the well-known good tank character for a rare hero, and he has very high HP, very high defense for a shield user, almost no attack, which who cares, but a great passive here. Takes damage for party members with HP lower than 50% within 5 tiles, activated only when Craig's HP is higher than 50%. So a great special ability. It works incredibly well with what he's trying to do. He's just trying to take as much damage as possible, and he's willing to take it for your other members. And then shouts loudly to increase defense by 50% for 5 seconds and taunts all enemies. It is kind of interesting that he has 2 taunts. He has one on his chain skill and one just on the typical taunt move. So I think that's kind of cool. He could pull people back. And then I was thinking maybe something where if you do have a ranged character on your team, so he comes to you, ignores that first taunt, but then he chain skills and then that taunt actually works on her. I was thinking something potentially like that, but I've never tested it. And also he has the exclusive weapon here, which is when hit by melee attacks, inflicts 20% of DPS damage to the attacker and restores 1 HP. The damage increase is proportional to defense. So pretty interesting ability there to be able to do that. Take his massive defense stat and be able to do damage based on that. So I think a very good tank. Definitely makes this list as one of the top rare heroes in the game. And I think that rounds it out. We do have water heroes here. See, and there's really no good water tank as a rare in this game. Like Rachel, I think would be a solid character. So now that we got the tanks out of the way, because there's no good rare tank here. I do want to talk about some honorable mentions as good rare heroes and potentially some sleepers. So the first one that I think is decent at the moment, but potentially could be very good, is Hikate here. She doesn't have an exclusive weapon, and yes, she has been used. I've seen her around as a good ranged damage dealer. She actually is surprisingly hard for one. She has very good base attack for a rare. Unfortunately, low defense, but special ability critical hit chance increased by 20% if no damage is taken. That's amazing. And then has that 2 versions of attacking where she has a aim shot, aims at enemies and fires a bullet that penetrates the target, and then precise shot fires a bullet that penetrates everything in the direction she is facing. So she's notoriously tough to face in a lot of PvE content. She is scary. But why I'm calling her a sleeper is because she's not really used in much in-game content, and she doesn't even have her exclusive weapon yet. So the fact that she's borderline as a good character at the moment, I think only means that she potentially could be very good if her exclusive weapon is good. So hopefully she is. Hopefully she actually comes up there. She's a cool character. And she's another one of those characters that has a very high base critical hit chance. Very rare thing to see. Really, it's kind of weird. You only see it on rare characters. I don't think there's a single unique hero that has that much base crit on them. Now that I think about it, a lot of unique heroes are all very, very low, if not any critical hit. So kind of interesting that 2 rare heroes like that in Hikate and Aoba, or not Aoba, and Akiyuki are the ones that have that. And then another sleeper slash good character, I think Rachel's a solid character. She's an overall solid damage dealer that you could see in water teams, especially as you're progressing up. Has the range damage ability here on the party skill. Has a good special ability, kind of like Hikate's, whereas instead of critical hit, it's attack percentage when not being hit. So another solid hero there. And last but not least, we should talk about Grimmery here. Amazing, a rare unit. Has the ability here where it throws a mysterious flash that damages enemies and reduces enemies defense by 20% for 5 seconds. And then the chain skill, which all to airborne, so procs of any ailment, and then throws a flash that causes a massive explosion, inflicts 200% of DPS damage, and reduces attack by 30% for 10 seconds. So a very long debuff there. And then for each hit on enemy inflicted with attack decrease effect, inflicts additional 30% damage. So very cool synergy there with her chain skill. And then if you have it with another character that's doing that, you get even more damage. And then the exclusive weapon here is it increases the range and damage of the final flash explosion by 60%. So the last ability of her, when she's throwing her melee, or when she's throwing her auto attacks, the last one is a bigger explosion that does 60% more damage. It increases the range and damage. Yeah, so range and damage of it by 60%. So very good. What holds her back is going to be her base attack. You see a theme here with these characters where they're a damage dealer with skill damage, but only 700 attack, but then they have this boost here where for each hit on enemy afflicted with attack decrease effect inflicts additional damage, additional 30% damage. And then this one for Coco, very similar kit and has a very similar passive over here. We talked about her earlier, but she has the same thing. She has the 72% skill damage. She has the low base attack for a damage dealer, and then she has the increases by 25% of skill damage. So kind of interesting that they're both very similar there, and they're both balanced accordingly. So I think that's going to call it for this rare hero list. Definitely covered a lot of them over here. So hopefully this was helpful, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this list. If there's anything you agree or disagree with, definitely let me know down below there. And with that, guys, I'm out. Peace.